We have Nathan Blackmon versus JP Milo, Mono Red Aggro versus Jeskai Aggro. Nathan looking to be the third Jeskai player in the top 8. A deck that we didn't see too much of in the top 8 last weekend, but it has come out in force today.
Yeah, 2 copies of Soul Tie Control with Michael Miller and Danny Jessup already locked in. Dylan Lurch, Jim Davis, both playing Jeskai as well. So very good performance for those 2 decks.
Yeah, and this is the Mono Red Aggro. This is the very low to the ground red deck wins that you'd come to expect. 20 creatures, 20 spells, 20 lands. I feel like there hasn't been an article written about that once or twice.
It's how Garfield drew it up. I actually
20 mountains.
I actually think the revised rulebook may literally instruct you to do that. I don't recall exactly.
Fire Drinker Satyr, turn 1 here for JB Milo. Yeah, no, there's actually 20 creatures, 20 lands, 20 mountains. Not even an exaggeration, to the T. And it's a pair of temples to start for Blackmon. He's on the play, so he's got a little bit of tempo on his side as we go back over to Milo. Monastery Swift Spear is dropped. You see, look at just the cast of characters in the red deck. Mardu Scout, Monastery Swift Spear, a lot of real good plays here. Here's Swift Spear, and he's going to go try to swing for 3. No Wild Slash from Blackmon means he goes down to 17.
Interesting play there. It seemed like a pretty sweet spot there to just cast the Mardu Scout. But I think that implication there is that Milo's got a lot of spells left in his hand, perhaps Whirling Outburst next turn.
I believe he does have the turn 3 Outburst, so hoping that this is more damage. Maybe he can dash the Scout later on. We'll go back to Blackmon. He has a Flooded Strand. Looks like Mantis Rider perhaps on his side, but he's going to go with just red-white cards. He'll make Whirling Outburst of his own, try to set up some blocks here.
This is another nice reason to play the Monastery Swift Spear instead of the Mardu Scout. It plays a little bit better against Whirling Outburst.
Absolutely. So 3 goblins in play for Blackmon. We'll go back over to Milo. Now these red decks, not particularly well equipped to deal with something like Whirling Outburst. You look at his spells there. Wild Slash, Searing Blood, Stoke the Flames, Lightning Strike.
Yeah, he's got his own copies of Whirling Outburst, I would assume. Yes, he has 4 copies. That's not bad in this spot. It probably gets a double block on the Swift Spear for your trouble. And then you have 3 tokens, but this is not one of the cards Mono Red Aggro is looking to play against game 1.
Go back over to Milo, another mountain here. Whirling Outburst of his own. That will trigger Prowess on the Swift Spear. Make it up to a 2/3. 3 goblins now in play for JB Milo. Swift Spear almost certain to get in. We'll see if Fire Drinker Satyr joins.
Yeah, I think that the odds are high enough here that Nathan offers up a double block that you don't have to attack with the Fire Drinker Satyr this turn. Because if you're facing down 1 token, well, maybe somewhere down the line that blocks something, or you have a removal spell for the token and the Fire Drinker Satyr is suddenly freed up.
Yeah, well, it takes the triple block to kill the Swift Spear.
Right.
And
only 2 of them die is my point. So
exactly.
Either way, I think you're better served holding off on the Fire Drinker Satyr for a turn or 2. Probably going to get some spots to trade it with a token if you want to. And you might be able to do better than that with some patience.
And Blackmon on the defensive here just chumps 1 goblin chumps 1 goblin as opposed to trading 2. And then goes back, fetches for his 3rd color. That's going to be blue mana.
I think the line of play he may be setting up here is he has something like Mantis Rider. That's a very good threat. And it allows him to hold up Stoke the Flames if he has it.
You see, that is the play. Mantis Rider. Nathan's going to have to race back, and that's what he'll do. So Mantis Rider's played, swings across, putting Milo down to 17, and our race is on.
Although it looks like JB Milo may have a Stoke the Flames of his own to break serve here, which is incredible. This is a huge tempo swing.
Yes, this may be... Yeah, this is before the 3 damage. Stoke will stoke back from Milo. We'll see if Nathan wants to stoke again.
And this is so awkward because if he stokes back, he's down his 2 blockers, and suddenly Fire Drinker Satyr and friends are freed up to make a good attack.
Yeah, it feels like he just can't make that play. Nathan does have another Mantis Rider in his hand, so he can repeat this line next turn, but this stoke was just a time walk for Milo. It was great.
That was a huge, huge play.
And that'll just be it for Blackmon. Milo stays at 20. We are back over to turn 4 for the Mono Red deck.
And Milo's hand, he's got some gas here. 2 copies of Mardu Scout as well. A little hard to make much use of right now. But he does have another copy of Stoke the Flames and Lightning Strike. So some good tools to work with. The Lightning Strike being particularly good against Nathan's presumed follow-up play next turn of Mantis Rider.
Yeah, and so back over to Milo. He's just going to go ahead and start a swing here. This is going to be Monastery Swift Spear. All 3 goblins still leaving back the Fire Drinker Satyr, but offering some possible trades. We'll see what Blackmon's line is.
And this is the squeeze, You want to go ahead and trade with the tokens. That's great. Then it frees up the Fire Drinker Satyr. You want to hold back. Well, you're just taking these chip shots.
And we'll see how much Blackmon wants to trade. It looks like it'll just be goblins for goblins.
And what's so potent about this from JB's side is that the Stoke the Flames is concealed. Even if he didn't have Stoke the Flames in his hand, you could see him not wanting to attack with the Fire Drinker Crusader. He feels like he can bleed off these tokens in another way. And the fact that Nathan is very likely to spend his next turn playing another creature, which is that Time Walk again that you spoke of.
Looks like
very potent.
Post-combat, a Mardu Scout for Milo. Now that he's got all the 1/1s off the board, it looks like a great spot to deploy more of his X1s. A second Mardu Scout in his hand as well.
And you can see Jeskai aggro definitely with more powerful tools, but the red deck with a greater level of efficiency, and that efficiency is coming to bear right now.
Yeah, so this time the Jeskai deck gets to resolve Mantis Rider. It swings in. Now Milo's actually at 17, but still behind in the race. A third Mardu Scout is the draw for Milo, and so much power on his side of the board. He's just going to get rid of the blockers. Lightning Strike takes care of the Mantis Rider, and now the creatures just get free reign of the board. Mardu Scout swings for 3, Swift Spear for 2, Satyr for 2, Goblin Token for 1. That's 8 damage across. Blackmon's down to 6, and without a sweeper in his deck, this may be a short-lived game.
Yeah, and Stoke and 2 Mardu Scouts left over in JB's hand. So even if Nathan can keep playing, JB can go over the top.
Pretty big. And Nathan, for that turn, finally drew one of his good cards against Mono Red. That's Seeker of the Way, but that may just be too late here. Goblin Rabblemaster is what he's going to have to play. Make a Goblin and swing it in. Milo at 16. And it'll be hard for Nathan to make it out of this turn. Mountain is the play. Stoke the Flames goes upstairs to Nathan. That'll put him to 2. Trigger on the Prowess, and we are on to game 2. JB Milo and Mono Red Aggro takes game 1.
Just want to point out here, Nathan casted turn 3 Hordeling Outburst on the play and died with Stoke the Flames in his hand. That is
not easy.
That is not. I mean, that goes to show you just how efficient this Mono Red Aggro deck can be and how good that Stoke the Flames was the turn that Nathan played his copy of Mantis Rider. That was the whole game.
Well, this Mono Red Blitz style strategy certainly worked game 1. We'll go ahead and look at to the sideboard. All right, Nathan's got, usually these Jeskai aggro can morph into a control deck in certain situations, and the question is Nathan able to do that?
He's got a Negate, 3 copies of Disdainful Stroke, an Elspeth Sun's Champion, 2 copies of Valorous Stance, 2 copies of Outpost Siege, 2 copies of Glare of Heresy, an Obs on Advantage, 2 copies of Anger of the Gods, and 1 Erase. So,
well, he has the Anger of the Gods, 2 copies, but that certainly is for matchups like this.
Right, so the 2 copies of Anger of the Gods are a great addition here in terms of trying to convert to the control deck. Once you get past that, there's not a lot to be thrilled with. I think the Elspeth Sun's Champion and the Negate are helpful. I don't know if Nathan can make a full swap, though. I think he's going to kind of have to stay true to himself here. Some of the late game cards are going to could be good for him, and the 2 copies of Anger are great, but he can't make a full conversion.
I'm walking through the sideboard over here for JB Milo. He has a smattering of different options: Bathe in Dragonfire, Peak Eruption, Hammer of Perforos, Eidolon of the Great Revel, Arc Lightning, Goblin Heel Cutter, and Prophetic Flame Speaker. How much does he even want to change in this matchup?
Well, 4 Eidolon of the Great Revels are really sweet in this matchup because Nathan's deck is chock full of cheap cards too, but Milo plays the aggressive game a lot better. So I like Eidolon a lot in this matchup. And I think the 2 copies of Arc Lightning come in as well, just in any Hordeling Outburst matchup. I don't feel like this is a Bathe in Dragonfire matchup. I imagine that's more for just Corsair Crewfix and similar threats. And I think Prophetic Flame Speaker is mostly for beating Drown in Sorrow matchups. So yeah. I think the 2 copies of Arc Lightning and the 4 copies of Eidolon come in, but probably nothing else. Yeah,
Peak Eruption. It's interesting, Jeskai's in a red deck, but a red deck with very few mountains. So Peak Eruption.
One. In fact, 1. So not a very good matchup.
We're not in the era of, was it that Peak Eruption? You saw a lot of play a year ago when we still had Ravnica in the block and we had all the dual lands, but the cards become a lot more narrow.
Oh, I blew up some Sacred Foundries.
Oh, yeah.
But you can't blow up Battlefield Forge, so it's just for Chain of the Rock matchups.
Yeah. One thing we want to talk about, though, while the players get ready for sideboarding is if you've read the popular cartoon Cardboard Crack, that is now in stock with our new 4th book. These Star City Games is proud to offer the Cardboard Crack in both our online store, and you can get them at our sales booth at events. We have the 4 volumes for just for $12.99 each. It's if you don't know, it's one of the premier Magic the Gathering comics, basically about magic culture, and these is available exclusively through StarCityGames.com.
Very lighthearted, black and white comic strip, very popular. The first 3 books were so well received that we went to the printers for a 4th book. They're all available on sale right now for $12.99 a piece at StarCityGames.com/cardboardcrack, or head over to any Grand Prix or Open we are vending at.
But so when you look back to a card, I guess like Peak Eruption, what is it? I mean, you don't have things like Sacred Foundries to blow up. I mean, is this just for a mono red mirror?
Chain of the Rocks. Because most of those decks are going up to expensive cards against you. Their mana is a little bit shaky, and getting a mountain with a Chain of the Rocks on it is awesome.
Sure. I mean, they have to play mountains, I guess, if they're going to play Chain to the Rocks.
It is. That's the text on the card. they don't.
You can't just play red duels and chain. It's not chained to the temple.
Right. They don't let you do that. So, it was better last year at Standard when you were getting Steam Vents and Sacred Foundries a little more often, but still quite potent in the right matchups. There's just fewer of those matchups now.
Yeah, you actually can still play the card in Modern for the reason you mentioned.
And you eventually,
surprisingly,
you will occasionally run into Red Devotion style decks that go higher up the curve. You can bring in those matchups as well, but it's basically for Chain of the Rocks. Because whenever that happens, it's just so sweet.
Oh yeah, that's the kind of land destruction you want to play. They take 3, you get your guy back, they lose a card.
Right. Even when you lose the game, it still felt like you won. Yeah, those are my favorite red sideboard cards. Is the piece of utility plus damage. It's Peak Eruption, Smash the Smithereens, Searing Blood, Searing Blaze, Molten Rain.
That one's mean. That one.
That casts too wide of a net.
You're not taking a risk at that point.
I wonder if my opponent's playing with non-basic lands. Of course they are, and even if they don't, who cares? Because it's still Stone Rain. That's a little too wide for me, but...
What if it only destroyed a non-base? It destroy target non-basic, they take 2.
Yeah, it's a slightly more palatable design, I think, but...
Still be really powerful. Still pretty wide net, actually.
Still would be a pretty wide net. Because it's not like you need to blow up all of their non-basics. You just need to blow up one of them. It would be definitely a little harder to main deck, but the power level wouldn't change all that much.
I guess Magic has gotten to a point where, you say, well, they're those monocolored decks that just run basics. But then, is that even a true statement?
Yeah, even the monocolor decks have whatever they're.
Yeah, it's like, oh, monocolor, better run some Mutavaults.
Right.
All right, underway. Game 2, Nathan Blackmon on the play with Battlefield Forge and Island. He's going to go ahead and cast a turn 2 Soulfire Grandmaster. Goes to 19 to do it. But this is in addition to the Jeskai aggro decks. I imagine it's helped their mono red matchup now that they have Grandmaster next to Seeker of the Way.
Yeah, the lifelink really matters a lot. You have to kill everything that they produce. That is a problem from the mono red side of the table is all their threats are really good. Rabble Master uncontested is powerful. Hordeling Outburst does a lot of work against individual pieces of spot removal. Mana's Rider has to be killed because you can't attack through it and it deals so much damage. And the 2-drops are all very risky to let them untap with.
Yeah, so since Milo with that Lightning Strike, that does mean that Rabble Master gets to be cast and make a Goblin as it swings in. For Milo, some awkwardness in this game. Right on time we had the turn 2 draw of Foundry Street Denizen. I'm sure you're familiar with that lovely interaction.
What, Foundry Street Denizen
on turn 2, sure.
It not in your opening hand? Yes, I am familiar.
It's great.
It's not good.
Milo does find an opportunity to play it, though. Turn 3, he'll play Foundry Street Denizen and Lightning Strike number 2. Takes down the Rabble Master, but the Goblin, leaving Nathan with just a Goblin, which will swing in here. Milo down to 18. And 1 Goblin. How about 3 more? Nathan will make a Hordeling Outburst.
Pretty good spot for Arc Lightning and a pretty bad spot for nearly any other card in Milo's deck.
But you have to think if he had the Arc Lightning, he may have just done that last turn. Well, how about he draws one? That also helps.
That's why you draw a card every turn.
Now he has a Hordeling Outburst of his own. He has to decide between that and the Arc Lightning. And he's just going to Outburst this turn.
I like this because it's possible that the Arc Lightning has utility in some other spot. For example, if he casts the Arc Lightning this turn and then Nathan follows up with Soulfire Grandmaster or Seeker of the Way, that's a big problem. This way you bleed off some tokens. If Nathan has a follow-up creature, you can still kill it. And if Nathan has nothing, you can say no blocks and then Arc Lightning the following turn.
The one thing I like about Milo's play is, so he basically has the option to either keep the board relatively clean or keep it cluttered. And when it's cluttered, what it means is that good plays from each player are much more swingy because, removal spells means that all these creatures swing in and there's a lot of damage on both sides. In this matchup, that seems to be something, Milo would rather have this be a game full of lots of damage, lots of fireworks, as opposed to a game of lots of kill spells.
Exactly. And also, both of these players have Stoke the Flames, but because Nathan just presents some big juicy targets, Milo's Stokes are better. And if you have the better Stokes in the matchup, that's another incentive to just let the board get gummed up because combat becomes very good for you.
Well, Nathan's going to offer a trade of some tokens. He swings. Milo will have no blocks. And actually, Nathan, this is huge, though. And this is the I was going to say I thought that this was the punishment of Milo not using the Arc Lightning, but we'll save that for next turn. Nathan swings for 4 and plays another Hordeling Outburst. But if you spied it, there's a Jeskai Charm waiting in Nathan's hand. That is enormous on this board.
Yeah, the risk here with the play that Nathan just did is that if Milo has Scouring Sands, which some of these mono red decks do, it's all over.
Yeah, he loses it all.
He still gets an opportunity to do the Jeskai Charm this turn, and even through something like Arc Lightning, he still gains a lot of life. So.
Yeah, even something, as we saw earlier, like Circle of Flame doesn't help in that situation.
And the upshot is if he goes to the 7 tokens next turn, then he gains 14, and Milo can't beat that even if he untaps and swings the board.
Yeah, mono red, we really don't want him gaining that level of life. And Soulfire Grandmaster the play for Nathan. I like the discipline. He's just not playing the Jeskai Charm. He plays that and just passes the turn. There's some temptation there just to swing the tokens and Jeskai Charm him right now.
I think that I would have preferred that play, in fact, because this is pretty awkward. If Nathan's sitting here on Stoke the Flames and trying to gain 4 off the Seeker, well, Milo might just say go, and then what do you do?
Maybe Milo has another Arc Lightning.
Right.
There certainly has not been a window where Milo could have cast one. You see, he's going to go for Searing Blood here on Soulfire Grandmaster. A fine play. And so it looks like Nathan wanted to cast Stoke with the Soulfire Grandmaster out, which is also a great play.
It's fine, though Milo's presented no juicy targets.
That's true.
Yes, the Stoke the Flame is fine, but the game is going to be going on now for a very long time, or it's shaping up to be that sort of a game, because Milo has a lot of blockers, so does Nathan. And it's not clear to me. I mean, certainly the Jeskai deck does have an advantage if the game goes longer, but it's by no means a lock.
Yeah, Nathan's actually just going to send the Stoke upstairs, I believe. Milo down to 10. Nathan will gain 4 off that thanks to Soulfire Grandmaster. He'll go to 16. And it looks like he is setting up for a Jeskai Charm next turn, but you're right. If you look at their hands, there are better threats, I believe, being presented on JB's side, JB Milo's side of the board. You see he has Rabblemaster, Stoke, and Eidolon still left in his hand.
And, you know, it was fine in that spot, obviously, because of the Horling Outburst and Soulfire Grandmaster. But in my opinion, the first card that the Jeskai deck should be boarding out in this matchup, unless they have some weird main deck stinkers, is Stoke the Flames. It's just not efficient against mono red.
There doesn't seem to be much to shoot. There are Rabblmasters in Milo's deck, but you just as soon have something like a Wild Slash or Magma Spray for it.
Well, the problem is that if mono red is beating you, they're keeping your board clean, and it's very hard to cast Stoke the Flames.
So here's a swing for 2 with Foundry Street Denizen. We'll see whether or not Nathan wants to trade. It is a 2-1. Now, Nathan's going to make the block here. But I want to throw back and say, I don't know, if Nathan leaves his Goblin in play, as he trades these cards away, he's making his Jeskai Charm significantly worse.
That's a spot where I think I just say, all right, take it, and you might trap Nathan into some blocks here.
Right, so if you had 4 Goblins, then you swing the whole team with this mana up. Either JB blocks and gets his board swept by a Jeskai Charm, or you put JB down to 2 with a Jeskai Charm, and then with his own Eidolon will kill him.
Yeah.
As it is, he swings, JB blocks with everything. And Nathan will fire off the Jeskai Charm. So Nathan takes 3 rather. He had to take 1 to cast the Jeskai Charm and then went down to took 2 off the Eidolon. His creatures will pump. He will gain 6, go back up to 19, kill off all of JB's creatures except for 1 Goblin, and he'll get 2 Goblins of his own in play.
So I think JB's played a really tight match here. This is really this is really my first critique. I think that if you are going to block in the way that JB did, you might as well throw the non-blocking token in front of a token, because if he's just attacking to attack, it changes nothing. And if in the event that he has a Jeskai Charm, which is probably what the attack represents, you're probably better served trading tokens than just having your token get eaten for no gain.
And now what JB's going to do is, in response to the Jeskai Charm, he's going to go ahead and stoke a Goblin, and therefore to deny some life gain from Nathan. And this is a really interesting decision. He could have stoked the Goblin in front of his Eidolon to save the Eidolon, or he could have stoked one of the Goblins that was about to win a fight. And JB opted to stoke the Goblin that was going to win a fight. He's becoming the control deck here.
Yeah, well, he was behind in the damage race. The Eidolon's more harmful to him at that point. And I mean,
look at this. Plays Rabblemaster, 4 Goblins are swinging. It's 10 to 10.
I mean, I don't know who this dude is, but this has been 2 extremely well-played games.
I mean, let's just, to put this in perspective, Nathan Blackmon's turns this game was a Rabblemaster, into a Hordling Outburst, into a Hordling Outburst, into a Jeskai Charm, and somehow Mono Red is winning the race.
Yeah, there is.
That is not supposed to happen.
I think Nathan made a couple of small mistakes here, but now, given that the follow-up was Rabble Master, I'm not even sure that I would have double blocked the turn where I thought that he should have double blocked if he was going to offer up a block. I mean, this is fantastic play from JB Milo.
So 9 on Nathan's side, 10 on Milo's. He has 7 points of burn in his hand, 4 creatures in play, and you can tell he knows where he's at. Swings in, puts Nathan down to 6. He's going to pass, and Nathan, he needs an answer pronto. He has 2 lands in hand. Say go. Here's Stoke the Flames. That puts Nathan down to 2, and that will be the match. Congratulations, JB Milo. Takes down the win, and with that, punches his ticket into the top 8 here in Dallas.
That was fantastic. I mean, that was just a perfect use of resources. Nathan can't be mad about the hand he had.
I mean,